Whoa. All right. Hey, every person's body. I read a book. Probably can't see it, but it's Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis. Really good book, man. 5 stars. Go away and read it right now. Honestly, I don't know if it's just me, but like the more books I read, the less into booktube I get. Just because I'm like, why am I listening to you talk about a book when I could actually just read the dang thing? That's way more interesting than hearing someone talk about reading it. But anyway, here you are. Make sure you like, share, and comment and all that jazz.
Irony! Oh, top score!
To be real frank, when I opened it up and read the first little bit of it, I was immediately like deflated because the whole sense of like being disoriented. I mean, after reading David Foster Wallace, there's no one else you can. I mean, so far I haven't read anyone who can match that level of not knowing where the heck you're going. So I was just a little bit from the top like, oh, this is gonna suck. But no, it didn't suck. This is set in 1980s Los Angeles. The main character and narrator is named Clay. He comes back to his social circle of young Hollywood aristocracy after his first semester away to like Connecticut or whatever for college. He comes back for the Christmas break. And this book is the 4 months of that. He just begins to interact and fall into doing what they do. It seems all interesting and vapid at first. And then layer by layer, you see what that means for who they are as people. They either can survive living in their surface life, just hoping to purchase their next sensory experience, or they realize that there is nothing more to feel, and with no guidance as to how to find any meaning beyond sensory experience, they all self-destruct in interesting ways. I found it very difficult to have contempt for any of these people, even though the way that they talk just
grinds my gears.
I mean, I spent a lot of time in Los Angeles, so I'm pretty familiar with how they talk and stuff. But I mean, even though they kind of grinded on me, I found it difficult later on to really fault them for it. Yeah, and Ellis also does a really excellent job of, how can I say that, transcribing that way of talking to people in the way that they use words like command line and instructions, simply to get a person from point A to point B, even though they imply a point F or a point G. This is not in their plan. They only wanted to go some other place. They're just kind of playing, just trying to get what they want and nothing more, regardless of how the other person feels about being used in that way. Very realistic. The main character, Clay, I'm not sure how to say this. He can't really feel his emotions, and sometimes he runs from them, but sometimes he can't feel them, like he disassociates. You know, I'm no psychologist, so I can't say for sure what's really going on there. Things happen at him. It's the best way I can describe how his experience is when things happen to him. When some of the harsher realities of life happens, he tries to disappear, tries to disassociate as much as he can. But also, at times, he'll disappear into a bathroom and just cry his eyes out, and then go back into the party as though nothing has happened. He's as soulless, I suppose, as any of the other characters who you see falling into hard times and trouble, and sometimes screaming out, crying for help, where no one in earshot really cares or knows how to handle it. However it is for them inside, it manifests as them doing nothing. Pop culture and music and events, they replace introspection in this book. Here he's kind of explaining what it's like when it rains and they're kind of stuck in the house by themselves, just having to deal with sitting in a room alone. Nothing much happens during the days it rains. One of my sisters buys a fish and puts it in the jacuzzi, and the heat and chlorine kill it. I get these strange phone calls. Someone calls, usually late at night, and on my number. And when I answer the phone, the person on the other end doesn't say anything for 3 minutes. I keep count. Then I'll hear a sigh and the person hangs up. The street lights on Sunset get short-circuited, so a yellow light will be flashing at the intersection, and a green one will blink for a couple of seconds, followed by the yellow, and then the red and green lights will start to shine at the same time. I get a message that Trent stopped by. He was wearing a really expensive suit, my sister said, and driving someone else's Mercedes. Friends of mine's, Trent told them. He also told them to tell me that Scott OD'd. I don't know who Scott is. It keeps raining. And at night, after I get 3 of the weird silent phone calls, I break a glass by throwing it against the wall. No one comes to see what the sound was. Then I lie on the bed, awake. Take 20 milligrams of Valium to come off the coke, but it doesn't get me to sleep. I turn MTV off and the radio on, but KNAC won't come in, so I turn the radio off and stare out across the valley and look at the canvas of neon and fluorescent lights lying beneath the purple night sky, and I stand there, nude, by the window, watching the clouds pass, and then I lie in my bed and try to remember how many days I've been home, and then I get up and pace the room and light another cigarette, and then the phone will ring. This is how the nights are when it rains. I really wish that this book was required reading for high schoolers because it's very relatable to high schoolers. Okay, so anyone who's read the book is going to be like, oh, well, what about the scenes of like the children getting raped? You can't put that in. What about all the violence and drugs and stuff? You can't get that to reading for high schoolers. And I say that's exactly why it should be required reading for high schoolers, because regardless of your morality concerning these things, they are not adult themes. They're themes that the majority of high schoolers are faced with. To see children like them, the same high school ages, dealing with problems that some of the most privileged high schoolers and some of the hardest cases are dealing with, just as lost, just as pained, I think it's important for them to see it. You know, that's why we read to some level. I know for sure that's why I read, so I can see bits of myself in these people and I don't know, feel like I'm not the only motherfucker in the world who lives like this. Probably by the time you were in 7th or 8th grade, you'd seen your first beheading video, am I right? There's no insulation, there's no protecting your children from their own curiosity, but you can allow them to experience some level of introspection, some level of reflection that maybe they're not capable of doing alone. That's why I think this would be a very valuable high school read. So the one gripe I have with this book are the motifs. They seemed a little bit thumb-fingered, but also I think that might just be me wishing that this was David Foster Wallace or something. The first motif is the sentence, "People are afraid to merge in Los Angeles," his girlfriend says in the first chapter. He kind of like explains it a lot in that first chapter, but it pops up later. And the second little motif that happens a lot are the disappear here that he says that he sees in a billboard. He spends just a lot of time explaining how it affected him. And I suppose not a lot of time for a book to explain how that would affect a person, but as a person experiencing and being affected by something that strikes with that strange reverberation like an ill omen. There's no thought in an ill omen, and here he translates that feeling of instant recognition that comes from a synchronicity into like thought and word emotions, and that's just a lot of levels to kind of cut away in order to get to what that raw feeling is like, to the point to where when the words disappear here appear later in the book apropos of nothing, my memory has to also remember how long it took for him to explain what the character felt at that time, so it felt kind of odd. This is a 5-star read. Yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody. Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, bye.